Jessica Yellen Show, where we connect the dots on what's happening in our world in ways that are meant to empower and inform. I have an exciting conversation today. I want to tell you first, I'm coming to you from Denver, where I am here for Series Fest and will be joining the legendary talk show host Maury Povich for his new podcast on Par. So we'll send that out, the great Maury Povich. But first, I'm speaking today to the wonderful Van Jones. Van, thank you so much, both for your leadership right now and your time today.
I'm happy to be here.
So, for those of you who somehow don't know Van's background, I'll just tell you quickly he's a senior political commentary on CNN and a fellow Substack writer. So, if you don't already follow him, you can follow him here. But Van, I think of you as not just a change maker and a passionate civil rights advocate, but also a person who understands the importance of compassion, coalition, and political strategy, and how all three things are vital to making change together.
I think,
And I'd say all three things are being tested right now. So, I just, before we get into it, I'd like to start with the human part. A lot of your life's work is being challenged. It's hard for me to work on the news every day and see what I see. How is it for you right now, and what gets you through the days? What makes you wake up in the morning and help you sleep at night?
well, when you're losing ground, it's not a good feeling, but you then have to remember how hard it was for the people who had to gain that ground in the first place. You think about a Dr. King, you think about an Ella Jo Baker, you think about a Fannie Lou Hamer, you think about a Bayard Rustin. In my community, these people were facing death threats every day. Some were actually killed. They when they would march, they wouldn't, they sometimes be beaten. There would be dogs, and there was no guarantee of any successful outcome. They had, 200 years of enslavement and then 100 years of Jim Crow racist terror, and no example in human history of being able to turn that into a democratic republic. And so I don't have the right to be discouraged. I don't have the right to throw my hands up. We've had a bad 100 days. I mean, we had a bad couple 100 years, and people somehow found the way to continue to push forward, to innovate, to find ways to make a difference. And so, I just, and that's true not just for civil rights. Every one of our struggles, the labor movement, women's movement, there used to not be an EPA, and that was a fight that was won under Nixon. So I just think, look, this is as bad as I've seen it, but it's not as bad as it's ever been.
Mm.
The look at the Jewish community and the incredible wave of hatred it's facing, and yet, within living memory, they were putting Jewish people in ovens, and the United States government thought so little of Jews, they wouldn't even bomb the train tracks going into Auschwitz because they didn't want to waste the bombs. We've come a long way from that, with the Jewish community and with Black communities and with other communities. And so, this is terrible. It could get worse before it gets better, but I'm not giving up.
So let's talk about a sort of realistic assessment of the state of things. And I want to say to my audience, my job has been for a long time, I say I give you information, not a panic attack. But sometimes this isn't sensationalism. Our news is quite panic inducing. And so for those of you who find this difficult, this is a warning. Van, I've heard you say that this is worse than you expected, and it would be hard for someone not to assess that. I think about what's happening right now, and we see people of a certain ethnicity and skin color being rounded up and put in camps, some forcibly removed. There's people who are American citizens being forcibly removed, attacks on civil rights, attacks on science, attacks on you name it. Some talk of backdoor efforts to institute martial law at the very same time that the economy seems like it might collapse, and social supports are being pulled away from the very same people who would need those social supports if the economy collapses. I I don't want to paint an excessively dire picture, and I also want people to be realistic about what we're looking at. What do you think is the state of affairs right now, and where do you think we are headed?
Look, you know, an object in motion tends to stay in motion. Uh, in other words, we have a certain direction now, a certain momentum now, and if we're not careful, we're going to end up where we're headed. Where we're headed does not look good at all. economically, when it comes to rule of law. I think we're just not used to the kind of mob boss mentality that you're seeing from the White House. Whether you like his policies or not, whether you agree with his assessment or not, this particular way of governing is not what we're used to. He's certainly not basing what he's doing on being popular because his numbers are going down everywhere. If you're a mob boss in your mentality, you don't have to be popular, you have to be powerful. You have to be willing to use your power to lavishly reward your friends and viciously attack your opponents. That's not the source of democratic power. Democratic power has to do with the people accepting what you're doing, supporting what you're doing. You're in a fight for public opinion. This is a different model. This is more it's more like what Putin has done. It's more like what other strongmen have done in recent decades, where you just grab as much power as you can, you hurt your enemies as badly as you can, and you give your friends lots of money and perks and opportunities, whether they deserve it or not. The biggest fallacy here is that we're now in a world of meritocracy. No more woke, no more DEI. But then you give a position to a Pete Hegseth who clearly couldn't, organize his way out of a sock drawer, and and give him the a bureaucracy bigger than anything in the world. It doesn't make a lot of sense unless you realize Pete Hegseth will be absolutely loyal to Donald Trump. He has no other source of any legitimacy in the world except his relationship with Donald Trump. And Pete Hegseth is willing to use the military against American citizens. Those are the only two criteria that he meets besides being cute on television, which Trump likes, cute people on television. Is that he's loyal and he's willing to be lethal against Americans.
So, given all that, I'm still surprised we're not seeing millions in the streets. Yes, I don't want to invalidate all the people who are protesting, but this is so at odds with American values and with what America is about. I have conversations, you're looking disbelieving. I just want to add to this. I have conversations with people who are activists themselves. And when I say, this phrase, it's later, people say it's later than we think, that, action needs to be starting in a big way now. They'll go, oh, we're just so tired from the last election and let's see what happens. I'm just wondering from your point of view, why aren't we seeing more organized, forceful, coordinated mass leadership either within the Democratic Party, or are we in a post-partisan moment where we need new organizations and coalitions to form that are about Americans standing up for democracy and not about party politics?
Look, I see it differently.
Okay.
Um, First, people have been in the streets for a while and it didn't work out the way that people wanted. You have to remember, in very recent memory, you had 10 or 20 million people marching for Black Lives Matter. Um, you know, and so you have people who say, look, we protested, we voted, we paid attention to the news, we posted, and we wound up with this. And so I think to ask people to go protest some more when the efficacy of protest is not clear, I just think you have to understand, like, people may not think that makes a lot of sense right now. Also, it does take a minute. People had invested a lot in the idea that, we had a Democratic Party and it was gonna stop Donald Trump, and when that doesn't happen, it takes a minute to reorganize. People say we don't have the time. You know what? Some things take time. I don't care how much of a hurry you're in. It's gonna take you 9 months to have a baby. You can be in a big hurry. You can be. It does not matter. Certain things take time. People keep saying, "Well, where's our leader? Where's our leader?" Well, I remember in 2004 when W beat John Kerry. We thought that W was a terrible president. We thought that W was an illegitimate president. Didn't win the popular vote. Supreme Court gave it to him. This is way worse. But don't forget, 2004, W comes back, wins the popular vote, has the House and the Senate. Very similar to now. And at the time, between Hurricane Katrina, the war in Iraq, Abu Ghraib, torture. I mean, we were completely alarmed by what was going on with Dick Cheney and George W. Bush. We didn't have a leader for 3.5 years. It took 3.5 years before Barack Obama was a nominee of the Democratic Party. And for those 3.5 years, what did we do? Do we just sit around and cry? No. To your point, people went out and built institutions. The Democracy Alliance was built in 2005 to organize our donors. Huffington Post was launched to organize our bloggers. Blogging was a brand new thing. We had Huffington Post launched in 2005. Media Matters and Center for American Progress scaled dramatically in 2005. I launched, along with James Rucker, colorofchange.org to organize Black folks online adjacent to moveon.org. There was a whole period of institution building, reimagination, and it takes a while. And if you think, oh, well, somebody can just snap their fingers and have a million people with them, try to have a baby in 3 weeks. That's not how it works. And I think this impatience, everything has to happen right now or it's all over. Look, I wish that we were in a better position. We're not. I wish we had better leaders. We don't. I wish we had institutions that were future fit. They are not. And so there's going to be a lot of work. And what I encourage people to do, rather than playing this kind of weird Democratic Party nominee for 2008 bingo that everybody's playing, if you had that conversation in 2005, people would have said it's going to be Hillary Clinton to get the nomination. Nobody in 2005 was talking about Barack Obama to be the president of the United States. We didn't even know if we could get the House or Senate back. It took Rahm Emanuel to lead the charge in 2006 to get the House and Senate back. And then Obama came out of nowhere based on people's movements independent of the Democratic Party. People were organizing against the war independent of the Democratic Party. The reason Hillary Clinton didn't get the nomination is because she voted for the war. Obama spoke against the war, and there was a huge movement independent of the party against the war that Obama then rode to power. So we are very early in this process. Yes, it's alarming. Yes, these guys are moving fast. I wish we could go faster, but try to grow your lawn, in a day. It takes all summer. It's just what it takes.
You've talked about how this is exposing some of the weaknesses, not in the Democratic Party, but on the left.
Yeah.
From my vantage point, what I have seen as one of the challenges is, and I hate the phrase cancel culture, but this sort of the narcissism of small differences, what Freud called that. So it's made it impossible to challenging to form coalition. Two people who want to fight for democracy won't work together because they disagree on Israel or on abortion or whatever the specific issue is.
Mhm.
Is that what you see as one of the weaknesses? What else is there, and what is needed to move forward?
Look, we made two mistakes that together are devastating. The top-down Democrats were defending a broken status quo that nobody likes, and their message was, if you think you're miserable now, wait till Donald Trump gets in. If you think you're
Sounds very hopeful.
Yeah, I mean, so it turns out that's just not as appealing a message, as, one might think, but that was only half the problem. The other half of the problem, the top-down Democrats are defending a broken status quo. The bottom-up Democrats and progressives are offending half the country, calling everybody a racist and a sexist and transphobic and every other sin you can imagine, and also ripping each other apart. Well, we got very good at canceling each other, calling each other out, putting each other down, and what that did, what I think what people understand about that, you know, our opponents talk about woke this, woke that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about our internal capacity to criticize each other constructively, to challenge orthodoxy constructively, to come up with new ideas and fresh takes. When 80% of your energy is just trying not to get blown up by your friends, trying not to get canceled or called out by your friends, not to get disinvited to the barbecue by your friends,
Yeah,
then the energy for innovation, for really thinking, coming up with wild, crazy ideas, you don't have the psychological and emotional safety that you need for innovation.
yeah.
That's key. You have to have a certain amount of cultural permission to innovate. So I think, though, now we're moving away from that. I do believe that, there's some, bad habits, but I think now if you say, "Look, I wanna figure out some way to save Medicare, to save Medicaid, to save Social Security, to save democracy, and I'm willing to put on hold some of my conversation about issues that are more precious to me personally," I think people may not have the habits of mind to do it, but I think there's a willingness to do that. And, And people keep saying, what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? I'm going to tell you, I don't know, and nobody knows. And it's knock it off. Like, what do you want to do? Is there an issue that you care about? Is there some and don't forget, some of these things begin to snowball based on individual passion more than some top-down playbook handed to people. Do you care about children with disabilities? Figure out what's going on with them, start organizing around that, raise hell about it. And it doesn't always have to come down to, I'm gonna march and I'm gonna call my congressperson. Maybe you create some online viral trend. Like maybe you do a concert. Maybe you organize your neighbors to donate money. The key is to create activity that is pointing in the direction that we want to go in. And you don't only want to raise the alarm about what the other team is doing. That's called the fire alarm function. That's important. But you also want to build a fire station where you can put the fire out. That requires people, it requires ideas, it requires resources, it requires camaraderie. And I think looking for that third way out. What about the status quo wasn't working in terms of people's, wage stagnation, and also just people are stuck in the media system. You do a great job. Substack is a good place. But a lot of times people are just getting hit in the face with their phone all day with just bad news, and we don't know how to break into like, I was on Twitch. I went on Twitch. Uh, I didn't understand a word anybody was saying.
Yeah.
It like all these, like, young gamers, and they're laughing about stuff. I don't know what the inside jokes are. I don't know the references. So there's an opportunity and an obligation I think that we have to accept that we got a little bit out of touch. It's easy to think if you're, on your Substack or watching CNN, you know what's going on. Trust me, there's a lot of stuff going on that you and I don't know much about. We need to make friends who vote differently, pray differently, look differently, without trying to make them wrong and tell them to agree with us. Interview your friends from Facebook days when you blocked them, in
Mm.
2016. Call them, ask them what they're listening to, who's important to them, what are their news sources. There's so much we have to do to get ourselves better educated about what our opponents think, what they feel. It's going to take a while, guys. And any time that you're spending learning more and getting an active, and it might, oh, it seems so small. It will seem small at first. Everything's small at first, but you can't skip steps.
I love that. I told my audience previously, take a moment if you want to know what to do. Think about, what do I care about? What are my superpowers? What am I super good at? And how could I put those two things together and do a small thing? Start with a luncheon at your house with your friends, whatever it is.
Yes.
So it's just taking the first steps. Um, there's so much we can talk about. I want to switch gears for a minute because you also occupy this fascinating combination of positions as political activist and also media commentator. And I wonder if you'd share how you think the press is doing right now, where it's doing well, what it's lacking, and is there something we're not covering that we should be?
Yeah, I mean, to the extent the press matters, and that's questionable because you do have a massive sea of non-press, non-professional media people who are having more and more impact every day. Kai Cenat on Twitch is talking to 14 million people. When I'm on, sitting next to Anderson Cooper, I'm talking to 1 million. So, so to the extent that we got to be a little bit more humble now. How much do we matter? I'm not sure in a world of Twitch and Roblox and Kick and Rumble and TikTok or whatever. But if we matter at all, here's a big mistake that we're making. The political press does not cover technology very well. The technology press doesn't cover politics very well. And a big piece of the story is Silicon Valley, which was a center left community. Big tech was center left, actually objectively helped get rid of Trump in 2020. Between 2020 and 2024, moved to the right aggressively, powerfully. And so names that are not household names for a lot of people, Mark Andreessen, David Sachs, um, Peter Thiel, Of course, Elon Musk is quite famous. Them going from central left, I mean, Peter Thiel is always on the right, but Silicon Valley as a whole, going from central left to far right, has completely destabilized American politics. And so we don't cover that in those terms. So we keep covering politics as if it's mainly about Washington, D.C. and maybe Mar-a-Lago. We're not thinking about the tech sector and how these tech guys the whole time have been rule breakers.
Yeah.
We just liked it the whole time. They were disrupting stuff, disregarding rules. We don't need a taxi medallion. We're just going to launch Uber and Lyft. We don't need to go through all the BS to get a hotel regulated. We're just going to launch Airbnb. What are you going to do about it? We don't have to listen to Wall Street regulators. We're going to just launch Bitcoin and crypto. What are you going to do about it? And we said, oh, great. You guys are so amazing. Here's a billion. Here's another $1 billion. Here's another billion. We're going to put you on the cover of magazines. Oh my God, you're so. Now we've created these monsters who really don't believe they have to follow the rules because they've never been asked to. So when they run into the White House with laptops, all these Doge kids, and just start stealing all the data and doing whatever they want to, and you say, well, that's illegal. They say, well, what's illegal? I don't even know what that word means. I got to ask ChatGPT what illegal means because, because you've never imposed a law on me ever. You've never made me follow a rule ever. And so I do think that we need to recognize that, and then they say, oligarchs or whatever. I don't know. That's a great term because I'm not sure a lot of people even know what that means. Or they, we don't like the billionaires. Well, hold on a second. Like Oprah Winfrey is a billionaire. I like her just fine. Say what you mean. What you mean is you have a bunch of people who are billionaires through technology who have moved to the far right and no longer believe that they have to follow the rules. And a lot of them don't even believe in democracy itself and say so. And so this is a new problem. Red hat MAGA is not your problem. It's the black hat MAGA. It's Elon Musk wearing the black hat. It's the billionaire, super elite, top down takeover aspect of MAGA that makes this all more difficult to sort out. And it will take time. Well, Dan, you just told me all this bad news about the black hat MAGA and the billionaires. What should I do? I don't know. I don't know. It's 100 days. I don't know. And so, what I would encourage people to do is to continue to find the one or two things you care about and organize in your community about that and reach out to people you disagree with, not to persuade them, not to convince them, not to convert them, but to understand them so that
Listen.
we can do a better job of strategizing.
Okay, I wanna ask you one more question. I wanna say there's one other piece of this, which we can talk about hopefully another time. Black Hat MAGA has formed this unholy alliance with Project 2025
Yeah.
and the revanchist right that has been able to make a level of progress that's even surprised them. And Democrats haven't even figured out at the left how to address that. It's another conversation. But you said something that I have to address, which is it's my view that the press is not vital because of the numbers. It's not that 14 million people are following Anderson on Twitch. It's that the press surfaces the reality that the entire digital ecosystem of fact-based people pick up on and run with. So if you look at the stories that Wired breaks or that New York Times breaks, and then you add up every digital creator and every Twitch person and every podcaster that's reaching audiences on that foundational material, they're the primary source material of truth, facts, and reality. And if we don't invest in that, and if we let that go by the wayside, we lose truth, facts, and reality. And the free press is the one private institution explicitly protected in the Constitution because our founders understood that truth, facts, and reality matter to democracy. Do you disagree with that?
I don't disagree with it. I just think that I'm just trying to not be so egotistical and narcissistic myself. I grew up at a time where that was so unimpeachably true that it would be weird to even say it. Um,
But
I'm
we
sorry.
need to defend it now. Don't we
Sure,
need to
sure, sure. I think we need to defend it. I think we need to speak up for it. I also think we need to recognize that the stuff that we're saying that we're doing. Look, I work every day, and just like you, I'm a part of the traditional media, and or the values thereof. Um, but there's a distortion effect now because what we're putting out there isn't now going directly into the eyeballs of 10 million viewers. It's getting chopped and it's being spliced and it's being spun by people who do not share the same values and who don't even have the same incentives because they're just playing for attention. You and I are playing for integrity. We're playing an integrity game, but we're being interpreted by a lot of people to people who are playing an attention game. And an attention game doesn't necessarily, like, sometimes having low integrity gets you more attention. So
Yeah.
all I'm saying is we are in a different environment, and often the people in my age group, I'm in my 50s, say, "Well, why isn't the press doing this? Why isn't the media doing that?" Some stuff you're saying we're not doing, we are doing. Now, we're not covering the technological part right, but some of the stuff people are saying we're not doing, we are doing. It's just that people, our mind share, our uninterrupted, uncut, direct mind share is getting smaller, and the mind share of people who are mixing it up with a bunch of nonsense is getting bigger. And I don't know what to do about that. I'm with you. I'm side by side with you. I just want to make sure that those of us who get it recognize that we there's a looking glass effect now on even what we're doing that I've never seen before.
I wanted to end on a happy note.
Good.
What are you doing next? What are you up to that's inspiring you?
Girl, I got 4 childrens. I have 4 kids, so just trying to keep up with them is inspiring to me. I'm so glad I have I've got, kids in the I have kids literally from 20 to 1,
Oh
like,
my god,
the
I
whole
can't believe that.
range. I have the whole range, and so I I learned so much from them. I would be so much dumber without them. Every day I'm like, "Okay," like, I am that old dude who's like, "Yeah, but you don't understand, like, in the 1980s, we," like, "Dad, please shut up." So, the kids are good. I'm trying to like, and like a lot of people too, um, people don't wanna hear this, but people are tired. I mean, it's been a tough period. Um, COVID was tough. The so-called racial reckoning, we got 6 months of sympathy and 5 years of pure backlash. Like, you would think that after Black Lives Matter, Black people actually made some progress. We didn't get a single bill passed when it came to the federal level for police reform. There were a bunch of false promises made briefly that were immediately snatched back, and now we're just getting our asses kicked. And so people are tired, and people are looking for deeper sources so we can stay in this fight. I see a lot of people focusing on health. I see a lot of people focusing on spirituality. I see a lot of people focusing on family. And that makes sense to retreat a little bit, to get our grounding again, and then figure out how we want to move forward. So, look, I'm looking forward to this summer spending a little bit more time reading. I am realizing, and I'll say this to everybody, if you have not read books, I didn't say articles, I didn't say YouTube, books about Elon Musk, books about Peter Thiel, books about the PayPal mafia, it's going to be hard for you to understand what to do because we keep studying the political people. Like, we'll study a Donald Trump or we'll study, a Newt Gingrich. We'll study people who are political because that's always worked for us.
Yeah.
The technology guys are above the politicians now. JD Vance was picked by Peter Thiel. Donald Trump was really, his election was guaranteed by Elon Musk. So you now have a new power level, a new power elite above the politicians that I don't know that much about. So I'm trying to spend my time learning. Like, I don't like to look. I misled you saying, you know, Hulk Hogan was a foolish choice for the RNC. Turned out it was a brilliant choice because it
Yeah.
got them that whole UFC crowd.
Yeah.
RFK Jr. was a bad choice. Turns out brilliant choice because it brought in a bunch of health skeptics. Oh, the crypto boys are just a bunch of scam artists. Brilliant choice for Trump to go after them. Brought in the tech bros. So I'm not understanding the system well enough to do my job without study and reflection. And so I'm spending time studying, I'm spending time reflecting So hopefully when I do have something to say, it's useful, and enjoying my kids. And listen, whatever these guys are doing, it's terrible, but Jewish people have been through worse. Black people have been through worse. Women have been through worse. Latino folks have been through worse. Asians, Native Americans have been through worse. Labor's been through worse. And ultimately, I believe we're going to come out on top.
Fan, thank you so much. There is this need for connection between politics and tech, and there's this, they haven't been talking. And wow, thank you. I applaud you for working on making that link.
Good.
I would love to talk to you another time about civil
Yes.
rights and then how to move forward in this moment in that space. I thank you for your time and your work. Have a great
And
day.
I thank you, and I appreciate everything that you're doing to keep the torch alive. It is very hard to do what you do because you're bringing the same integrity and the same values that have been traditional, and you're bringing it to all these new spaces and places, and we need you. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All
Have a
righty.
great one. Thanks.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye. And to everyone else, stick around. I'm going to bring you some good news. As you know, we are always every week as first of all, thank you to Van. He has a unique insight because he's willing to sort of break orthodoxies. And he does it in a tone of compassion and curiosity. And that I think allows him a lot of freedom of movement to do that. And that's also a good learning for anybody who's trying something new, even if it's a risk, how you approach that risk and challenging other people's thinking. Um, it can be, you have a lot more flexibility if you do it in that spirit of, I'm just here to learn. I want to understand. And I'm not coming to cancel you or challenge you because you disagree. For me, one of the crucial learnings of this moment is that folks who have been so eager to call out other people because they're not using the right word or they have a slightly different point of view on one thing, um, it's time to just step back and say, what are your values and do they align? And to be honest, I think that's one thing that News Not Noise has proven because from the beginning, we've had people here who cross political lines. There are so many News Not Noisers who are identify as Nikki Haley voters, some who identify as independents, some who identify as lifelong Democrats, and some who are to the left of AOC. And you occupy the same space because you care about community and have the same values. You care about your world, you care about fact-based information, care about being informed to make a difference. And it's a time when we can celebrate, like, just value that we're in a space, I say, of like valued but not like-minded people. And I think we need more of that. And that's sort of what Van is also talking about and stepping forward for. Okay, but now I want to switch gears to do something that's purely optimistic. So many of you have told me that it's hard to listen to all the difficult things that are happening in the world. And you want to hear from people who are, quote, doing something to make a difference. And so I solicited from the News Not Noise audience, I asked people to send in stories of people in their world who are making a difference. And today, I want to share the story that Amber Broadway brought us to shout out her two friends, Christy Caballo and Judith Oritzi, who are doing something. Amber says that both of these friends of hers are working in advocacy to support people on the autism spectrum. This is an important issue right now as HHS and RFK in particular are making folks on the autism spectrum part of a sort of focus of their work while misrepresenting who they are, how they live, and what they need. And she says that both these women are, quote, rock stars who are working so selflessly, a quote. So let's talk about Christy first. Christy, she says, co-founded Mission Alpha Advocacy. They advocate for healthcare and quality of life for military families with disabilities and special needs. Uh, I didn't even know this, but I'm not surprised to hear it. Apparently there have been, quote, catastrophic disruptions in care lately for military families with people on the autism spectrum because the insurer for the military called TRICARE, they made changes in who their contractors were at the start of the year. And because of that, there's been a problem with getting care. And Christy has been organizing to get military families access. I don't know why I cry every time I talk about this, to the essential services they need for their autistic family members. She's also doing advocacy work to help families navigate these disruptions. Amber says that that having someone like Christy, who is a doctor and a mom to a neurodiverse family, is helping other military families, and that's a gift. I get emotional because I think of both how hard it is to do this work always, and now with the, resources being ripped away. People tell me that, the hotlines they're supposed to call for help, there's no one staffing them anymore because those people have been fired. And then frankly, sometimes doing my work, I feel so it's hard. I look at this negative stuff all day and feel isolated, and then you hear about these other people doing the work, and it helps. So the second person we want to call out is Judith. Judith, along with her daughter Amy, co founded the Profound Autism Alliance, which is there to help health outcomes for profoundly autistic individuals through inclusive research and focused advocacy. The Alliance runs something called the Profound Autism Summit, which had just 900 attendees. Oh, which just had 900, not just, we just had 900 attendees at this year's event. That's huge. And Judith regularly flies to Washington, D.C. to meet with legislators and advocate for her community. So Amy says Judith is currently navigating the noise of polarization in community related to RFK Jr.'s autism talks, and she is not afraid to share the light and the dark of profound autism. So I want to say this directly. Thank you, Judith and Christy, for your work. It is making a difference. It is important, and you're not alone. And thank you, Amber, for having the time and compassion to want to send this email, think of them, and spell out all their actions. All of y'all are doing something, and it not only makes a difference to the people you're helping, but to the others you inspire and to whom you bring community. To everyone watching, if you want to shout out somebody, a person or an organization who is making a tangible difference in people's lives, even somebody who, as Van said, is starting something and taking a risk, even if it's a neighborhood group, please tell us about them by writing us at community@newsnotnoise.com. Please write in the subject line all big doing something so we can find those emails. And together, I think we're all doing something in just doing that. So that's it for today's show. A big thank you to everybody joining us, to Van, and to everybody writing in. I'm going to be back next week, so please check the newsletter and check on Instagram to find out the times and all of that. I'm in Denver. For those of you who are News Not Noisers in Denver, I'm doing a meetup tonight at 5:30. Email us at community@newsnotnoise if you want to come to that. If you want to come to the podcast taping live for Series Fest, we'll have a link on the newsletter to attend that in Denver tomorrow. And anybody who hasn't already signed up, you can find me on Substack, where I try to bring you information without a panic attack and news of good people doing good things. And also find us on Instagram at Jessica Yellen. I welcome your ideas, your stories, your suggestions for interviews, and your messages of community. Thank you, everyone. Have a great Friday. We'll send this out if you want to rewatch it or share it with friends in the newsletter later today. And I'll see you soon.